Okay. Thank Hashem that we're able to learn every day. It's chassav learning Hashem the Beis Hamikdash immediately. And the Refuah Shleima for Yechiel Nassim ben Sarah, Aaron David Alevi ben Minucha, the last day, Abraham Nafal ben Sarah. Okay, today we're starting the new Masechta. Start Moed Kattan. Moed Kattan means a small holiday. It's referring to Chol Hamoed. So, like Beitza would be considered the Masechta of Yom Tov, and Moed Kattan is the Masechta of Chol Hamoed. The halachas of Chol Hamoed. Yeah, on the side, apparently, it's not actually Rashi. They say it's Rabbeinu Gershon. If you have a new Gemara, which I don't have, then you have a Rashi Ksav Yad that it was found maybe within the last 100 years. They found a manuscript somewhere, and they put it Rashi Ksav Yad on the side. Yeah, my Gemara doesn't have it. You probably a lot of in this. So how do they have it? The Koran doesn't have it. Beautiful. Okay. It says Mashkin Beis Hashlochim b'Moed. You're allowed to water a field that requires watering on Chol Hamoed. Why would the field require watering? Well, it's not on the bottom of the mountain, it's towards the top of the mountain. So it doesn't get all the rain and the rainwater and all of that. It gets some rain, but it's not enough. You have to water it. If you don't water it, then you'll lose it's a loss. You lose the crops. And the same as with Shemitah. Now, the Gemara is going to ask a question on this. It seems a little problematic because on Chol Hamoed, I have an issue of tircha. I have an issue of work. Shemitah, let's say tircha could get pushed away by, if it's a big loss. So you say, oh, that's even worse than tircha. You don't want you to lose your possessions. That's like a bigger tircha than tircha. We can see the balance, how to weigh that. But when it comes to Shemitah, that I thought that was a halacha, that you don't have any options there. I mean, Chol Hamoed is also halacha. But the sages tell us what malachas are asur and which are mutter. So that, there's more wiggle room. We'll see. You're allowed to use a spring that's just started right now. It just started. Or you're even allowed to use a spring that started a while ago. Yeah. What's the difference? A new spring it still is going to crumble a little bit along the sides. It's not like everything that falls off it is still yet to fall off and get washed away or whatever. There's still work that has to be done. If it's an old spring, then this is how how it's been going for years, so it's much less of a tircha. So we're afraid that it's actually going to get stuck, and you're going to need to put in more effort to go out with the shovel and fix it. Yeah, the order of this, the Gemara is gonna challenge because it says whether it's a new spring or even if it's an old spring. The Gemara should say the opposite. To say an old spring you're allowed to do, and even if it's a new spring you're allowed to, because that's going to be more effort. The Gemara is we'll see in the Gemara. Avalin mashkin lemi meg shamim, but you can't use rainwater because then over there you're going to have to go and take it by bucket by bucket. That's a big job. Lemi me akila, and you can't use like some sort of cistern. Ve'inaisin ugiyos legefanim. Underneath the vines, they would dig a circular hole to collect water for the roots of the. You're not allowed to do that. Rabbi Lozer ben Azariah, you're not allowed to make a new stream on Moed, ubashvias, and on Shemitah. We'll see in the Gemara. Chachamim say, on Shemitah you are allowed to. You're allowed to make a stream. The water should be able to flow in one direction. You're allowed to fix the broken streams on Chol Hamoed. You're allowed to fix up the. There's different pshatim here. Kalkuli. Some say it means the wastewater, like the dirty water. Others say that it actually just means water, but it's the water channels are crumbling or something. Yeah, they have to be fixed. And then you're allowed to dig out if there's a lot of sediment on the bottom. You're allowed to dig it up to make it deeper or to make it flow better. You're also allowed to fix up the streets, wide streets, the paths in the streets. The mikveh they're allowed to fix. This is, we're talking about Chol Hamoed. You're allowed to do everything that the public needs. And you can put up markers on graves. You can even go out to fix up the kalayim problems, the forbidden mixtures in the vineyards and all of that.
First of all, I think it should be passed like all these cases not to be a loss.
Yeah.
Can't wait until after go away.
Yeah. That's what's going on here.
The other thing is, if they have July, there is a law. All the other cases, convenience for your July is on behalf of the
You're right. Taisus points that out. That Yetzin ala Kalayim is a little different because that's a mitzvah, Taisus writes. Yeah, the other ones are you're allowed to. Okay. I think the Rabbeinu Gershon didn't have the full Mishnah. He didn't translate half of it. So he didn't have, maybe in his, whoever put it together didn't put the second half of the Mishnah into the translation. Okay, the Gemara says like this: Now we can say, go back to the beginning of the Mishnah. It says that a beis hashlachin, this type of field that requires watering. Yeah, waited till Nisan. Right.
We learned a week ago that we're supposed to check for 2 months. So the fact that this guy shows no Chol Hamoed days after start pulling his line.
It may even be Chol Hamoed Sukkos. Right. So the Gemara right away says, he said, Mimayan Shiatza Betchila, the Asilan Pule, a new stream that just started, just started now. It could be that the walls of the stream could collapse, and it's gonna require work. But nevertheless, mashkin. Nevertheless, you're allowed to use that stream to water the field. An old stream. It didn't just start now. That it's not going to collapse. Does it have to tell me that you're allowed to use that? Usually the order of the Gemara is, it tells you something that's more obvious, and then it tells you the bigger chiddush. Not only this, but even that. That's usually how it works. It says, Amri, Itzrich. No, it has to tell it to me this way that I'm allowed to do, even from a stream that was there the whole time. I'm allowed to use that stream. If it would say that you're allowed to use the new stream, that would be all it said. So Havamina, I would have thought, Hachu the Beis Hashlachim in Beis Habalai. Get introduced to another type of field here. There's the Beis Hashlachim that requires water, and there's the Beis Habal that the rainwater is good enough. It probably depends on what's growing there. You know, certain natural native, the native plants don't require watering. So it depends what's growing there. And it also depends on where its position is on the mountain. So Beis Hashlachin is a field that needs to be watered for the plants to survive. The Beis Habal, it doesn't need watering. But by the way, if you do water it, you'll get better produce. And more, you'll get more abundant and better. But it's not going to die. It's going to be fine as is. So I could have thought that the Beis Hashlachin you're allowed to water because or else it's going to be a total loss. So Beis Hashlachin in, Beis Habalai. Why not? Mishum Dasilin Pule. Because that new stream that you're trying to use may require a lot of work because the sides may fall in, you're going to have to redig it and all of that. But if it's an old stream, an old spring that it's not going to collapse. It's been going for years like that. I could have said that maybe you're allowed to water a Beis Habal as well. Yeah, maybe you're allowed to water a Beis Habal. A Beis Habal is a stream, is a field that doesn't need watering. Just to get extra money, to extra produce. So Kamash Malan comes to tell us, it doesn't matter which one, only Beis Hashlachin in, Beis Habal Lai. The field that there's going to be a loss, yes. If there's Beis Habal, if it's going to be, if it's a field that would survive without being watered over Cholamayit, you're not allowed to water it, even from the old spring. That's why it says the old spring. You're not even allowed to use. That's why it says you're even allowed to use the old spring to tell me that it's only the Beis Hashlachin that you're allowed to use the old spring. You follow? The emphasis is not that you're even allowed to use the old spring. The emphasis is that you're allowed to use the old spring only by the Beis Hashlachin, but not by the Beis Habal. Okay.
So the new spring, the act of watering is going to somehow contribute to it collapsing, or no? It's just that it might collapse while you're taking the water. And
yeah, I'm assuming. I don't know what exactly. I sort of had to be there, but I'm assuming that they're able to get the spring to flow like close to the field, and they would do that by making a little channel to allow it, because they don't want you to going over to the spring taking buckets. That you said you weren't allowed to do. You weren't allowed to water with buckets. So you have to get it over to the field somehow. Now, whatever channel it is, you're going to need to direct it. So, yeah, if it's a new channel, yeah. Now the question is, so what do you need to do for an old one? Yeah, maybe the way it worked was, making assumptions. But maybe the way it worked was that if there was a spring that was there for a while, you could get it to go this way, you can get it to go that way. So you were allowed to redirect it. But this was a new one that actually wasn't going correct the way that you wanted it. You were allowed to direct it anyway. Yeah, you haven't done this before in that spot. That's the idea.
Sure. Your irrigation canal.
Yeah. Right. I think the chiddush over here for us, I mean, you have to check in the halacha, everything in Shulchan Aruch. But what we're seeing is that you're allowed to work on Cholamayid if there's going to be a loss. That's what we're seeing. But what we're also seeing is that you're not allowed to work if you're going to lose profit. Watering the Beis Habal is only profit. And a loss of profit is not considered a loss. Money not earned is not considered a loss, according to this. That's what it's saying. I'm not telling you what the halach is. I'm just saying okay. So, Umay Mashma, where do we see, what's the implication? Oh, wow. The high Beis Hashlachin listener, the Tzachusehi. Yeah. I'm trying to figure out what the source of the tzachus is, where we had it before, but it means thirsty. How do you know that Beis Hashlachin means that it's a thirsty field? It doesn't get enough water on its own. The ksiv, the pasuk says, "Vata oyef v'yageya." You're tired and weary. The targum on that pasuk says, "Vat mishalhi v'loi." You're tired and weary. But the word mishalhi has a hey in it. And we've had before in several places, brachas, that a ches and a hey are interchangeable. So the word it could say about mishalchi, Beis Hashlachin, tired. That's just tired and thirsty. It's like goes together. Oyef. Okay. Oyef. I said ayif means tired. Translating ayif means that you're thirsty. Okay. Well, my mashma the high base abal listen to me asvusehi. How do you? What's the implication? Where do you see that base habal means that it's a field that doesn't need water? Yasvusa means that it's settled, relaxed. Yasev, like Yishuv Adas, like settled. Iksiv, as the pasuk says, ki yival bacher besula. If a man will marry a besula, a virgin, mitargaminan, the targum of that, arei kama demi tusav ulam im besulta. Ulam is alma, is the masculine, right? For a bacher. Is it right? So when a man will live when a bachelor will live with a virgin, yasvan begavach benayach, your children will be settled within you. So it's talking about that the field does not require. It's telling me that the word Baal is the targum of. Is the Hebrew for the targum of being settled and relaxed, that they don't need anything. So that's where we're getting that the base habal is a field that doesn't require any extra watering. Yeah, they say before I got married, I was at this doctor's house. It's a Shabbos meal or something. So he was in this is in Simcha Monica. He was like a big doctor from Cedar Sinai or something. I don't know. Anyway, tells me, yeah, when we got married, he was telling his wife, we didn't need anything. We don't need like a salary, whatever. No, but you can live off nothing. So yeah, before the bills come. Okay, so Montana, the Pseida in Harvachalai. Who is the author? Who is the opinion that says that you're allowed to do anything to protect yourself from a loss, but you're not allowed to do things to increase profit? Because that's what we're learning here, that a beis hashlachim, to protect from a loss, you're allowed to water the field on Cholamayit and Shemitah. But you're not allowed to water a beis habal, which even though that would increase the produce. Rafil b'makam seida, even in a place where there is a loss, that means even in a beis hashlachim, there's two details here, very important. The other detail is that even if there is a loss, mitrach nami lo tachinan, you're not allowed to go out of your way. You're not allowed to have the extra bother. Even in a beis hashlachim, you're not allowed to take water in a bucket. So in other words, you can't, there's two halachas. You can't water a beis habal at all, even if it's easy, even if it's just a mayan. And in a beis hashlachim itself, you're only allowed to use that mayan. You're not allowed to get from a cistern and take a bucket and water, because that's too much effort. So two halachas. Who is the author of those two that holds those 2 points? That could be the author of our Mishnah. Rav Huna Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov. Rav Huna tells us that it's Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov. Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov, we have other Gemaras that tell us that Mishnasi Kabanaki, he doesn't say a lot, but everything he says is accurate. It's pure, it's perfect. Kav, it's small, but Naki, it's pure. Yeah. So it has to be in this I was calling it Rashi, in this Rabbeinu Gershon, on the top one, so he says that we have a limud from Sheshis Yom Techel Matzos of Yom Shvi Atzeres L'Hashem Alekecha. We have this limud. He's quoting a Gemara in Chagiga, that we do have this this limud that tells us that certain malachas on Chol HaMoed are going to be asur, certain not. But if you go down to the Ela Loi Masran Akasav Ela L'Chachamim Loi Malach Iza Malach Asur B'Chil Shel Moed. The Chachamim tell us which ones yes, which ones no.
So this is all rabbinic.
So it is the sages determine which ones. I don't know if that means it's rabbinic or not. Yeah. So there's a pasuk that tells me something is us. The question is which. Sages tell us which. I don't know if that means it's rabbinic. Okay. So it's Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov. Ditnan. Morning. Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov says, you're allowed to get the water to go from one tree to another tree. Now the water, you already had like a ditch around the roots of the tree to collect the water. You're allowed to spread that, make a connection, so it could go to the next tree. But you can't do the whole field. Okay, so it sounds like you can get it to go to another tree, but you're not allowed to do more than that. What are we seeing? The Gemara says, "Well, Eimer deshamet leila Rabbi Elazar havacha delay tircha b'makom delay." It's a very hard phrase over here. So I spent a while on this, trying to figure out where to put the comma. Say that Rabbi Elazar holds harvacha delay. See, what we're talking about here is a beis habal. You can't water a beis habal. Beis habal doesn't need the water anyway. But if you do water it, it would get extra. So Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov tells us, say you're not allowed to do that to get that extra. But tircha b'makom seida mishametle. Let's say it wasn't a beis habal. Let's say it was a beis hashlachim. And he's not telling me that I can't take the water from the cistern and bring it with a bucket. He doesn't tell me that. He just tells me that you're not allowed to do things in a beis habal. Why are you allowed to water that one tree? Maybe that would be considered a beis hashlachim, that tree, but the rest of the field would be considered a beis habal. So tircha b'makom seida mishametle. Does he say anything about? Do we hear from him anything about tircha, extra bother? B'makom seida in the place of a loss. That means makom seida would be a beis hashlachim, a place of a loss, if you don't water it, but it takes a lot of effort. Elam Rav Papa Hamani Rabbi Yehuda. Papa says the author is Rabbi Yehuda, not Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov. Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov didn't tell us everything. Why we're jumping many generations from Rav Huna to Rav Papa. The Tanya was taught in a brisa. Mayana yoytze betchila mashkin mimena filiste beisabal div Rab Meir. A new mayan, according to Rab Meir, you're even allowed to water a stay beisabal, even a field that doesn't need the extra watering. He's very lenient.
To encourage the spring to keep flowing?
No, it doesn't need the watering because of the rain.
And but what is the spring that just came forward?
A new spring.
Ooh. What does it mean, new spring?
You were right there.
A new spring means that it hasn't gone this direction yet. That's the way we're explaining it. So that's Reb Meir's opinion. We're not taking Reb Meir's opinion here. We're taking Reb Yehuda's opinion. Reb Yehuda Imer ein maskenel stay beis hashlachim shachar. But no, he says you're only allowed to water a stay beis hashlachim that's been destroyed. The Gemara is going to have to explain if it's been destroyed. So what are you watering it for? There's nothing growing there. You have to figure that out. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah Imer, leikach v'leikach. You can't do either of them. Then the Bryce goes on. Yisrael came Amar Rav Yehuda. Rav Yehuda says more. Lo yifna the mama samayim v'yashkel ginasa lechavas b'chol hamayit. Person can't direct an ama samayim to water his garden or his, what do they say, chavasai? Is it his ruins on chol hamayit? So when we said before, Beis Hashlachim Shecharva, the Gemara asks, "My charva, what were you talking about that it was destroyed?" Ilay macharva mamish, if you mean that there's nothing growing there, so lamali demashkele. What are you watering an area that has nothing growing in it? It's charva. Amar Abaya shecharva mimayin zev yatzla mayin acher. Abaya says, no, you do have things growing there. The only thing is that you have a new mayan. So the mayan was destroyed, the irrigation system was destroyed, and now you have a new one. Now, Rabbi Lazar ben Azariah Aimer, leikach b'leikach, leishna charav mayana, leishna leicharav mayana. And Rabbi Lazar ben Azariah was saying that you can't use whether it's a new stream or not a new stream. Okay. Mayan shiatza betchila loy. Now, whether the old stream is there or not, you're never allowed to use the new stream. That's what Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah says. Okay. So what are we getting from this? We're getting Rabbi Yehuda is telling us that a new stream you're allowed to use for a Beis Hashlachim. Stay Beis Hashlachim Shecharva means the old stream is broken. You're allowed to get a new stream for a Beis Hashlachim. That's what. So that's what we're looking for. Where do you see that you're allowed to intervene to protect yourself from a loss, even if it's a new stream, even if it's going to be something that may require some effort, that you're allowed to do that? Minimal effort. So the Gemara says, okay, good. But the only thing is, how do you know? How do you know anything more than what we say? The only thing that we said was that if it's a Beis Hashlachim, a field that's, if you don't water it, it's going to dry up. You're going to lose everything. So over there, you're allowed to use a mayan shiatza mitchila, a new stream. You can't do it to a beis habal. You can't do it to the other type of field that doesn't need it, because maybe it's going to require too much. It's going to collapse. But let's say it's an old stream. I feel a beis habal nami. You didn't tell me anything about an old stream for a beis habal. In other words, our Mishnah is telling us that you can't water a Beis Habal even from an old stream. This brisa that you quoted from Rabbi Yehuda, it doesn't have that in there. It only has the second point, that a Beis Hashlachim, you're only allowed to protect yourself from a loss, but you're not allowed to do extra things to increase profit. That you're not allowed to do to too much exertion. That's the other part of this. That even in a Beis Hashlachim, you're not allowed to water from a cistern. So that we can see. We said that you're allowed to use a mayan. Okay, good. But the other part, that you're not allowed to water a Beis Habal for the profit, to get extra profit, that we didn't see anything. Okay. The Gemara now says, Imkenam masnisa naman temaya. You're going to get so picky over here. It only said half of it. So who's going to be the author of our Mishnah? If you're asking for basically everything, and then it's going to leave you with nothing. We don't have an author of our Mishnah. Ella Rabbi Yehuda. Rather, the Mishnah is Rabbi Yehuda, like we said, that you're allowed to water a Beis Hashlachim with a mayan shiatza mitchila. And really, leishna mayan shiatza mitchila, leishna mayan shlayatza mitchila. Really, he meant that you're allowed to use Yatza Mitchila, Allah Yatza Mitchila, but only for Beis Hashlachim in Beis Habal, but not for a Beis Habal. So why didn't he say that? Why didn't he mention a Mayan shelo yatzim mitchila, which means an old mayan. It says v'haidik tani mayan shatzim mitchila. This study was only talking about the new spring, leidiacha kaychid Reb Meir, to tell us a big chiddush in Reb Meir. Because Reb Meir, if you remember, was very, very lenient. He allowed almost everything. Even if it's a new stream, that covers that. That's everything. Even a field that doesn't require watering, because it gets enough rainwater, you're even allowed to use a new spring. That's the extreme. That's the extreme heter, that you're allowed to do the biggest tircha. It's not the biggest tircha. The biggest tircha would be to actually use a bucket, an assistant. But you're allowed to use a new stream which could cause tircha to water a Beis Habal. And that's why when it came to Reb Yehuda, we didn't discuss the old stream, because the emphasis here was that Reb Meir allows the new stream.
What if the case that it's getting enough rain on its own, and now you're reducing additional watering? Isn't it that you're not protecting a loss, but rather going towards a profit?
In what type of field?
In a field that gets enough water.
Yeah.
But rainwater on its own.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
if you're
So
going
that's
in,
just profit.
That's just profit.
Yeah. And Reb Meir allows it, and Reb Yehuda doesn't. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I find in a lot of Masechtas that the first Amud is sort of like difficult to enter. Like it's like to turn away like the faint-hearted or something, and then it gets a little easier afterwards. So, okay, the next piece is lighter. Itmar is a statement of Amirayim. Hamenachish v'amashke mayim lezroim b'Shabbos mishamayim masrinan be. If someone is doing a malacha on Shabbos, so witnesses see him, they have to warn him that what he's doing. They have to say, don't do that. That's the malacha of this and that. If you do that malacha, you're going to get this, a punishment. So let's say someone is weeding a field. He's taking the weeds out of the field, or he's watering grain. He's watering his plants on Shabbos. What should the witnesses warn him? Which malacha is he violating? So Rabba Mishum Chayrish. Rabba says the weeding and the watering is preparing the soil. And preparing the soil goes under the category of plowing. Rabbi Yosef Amar Mishum Zayreya. Rabbi Yosef says it's more than preparing the soil, it's planting. What is planting? It's causing it to grow. Right. By weeding it, he's causing it to grow. By watering it, he's causing it to grow. Amar Rabba. Rabba says, Kavasei didi mistabra. My opinion is more logical. Ma darke shel chayrish l'repuya yara. What's plowing? It softens up the soil. So hainami merapuya yara. He's softening the soil. He pulls out the weeds. He makes the soil soft. There aren't a lot of weeds. Yeah. Although in the schools they tell us there are no weeds. That's a mashal for the different types of students. They say there are no weeds. Okay, right. Amar Rabbi Yosef says, mine is more logical. Ma darke shel zirei litzmuche peira. What is planting? It makes the fruits grow. This is also making the fruits grow. Okay. So each one has his explanation. Amalei Abaya Rabba. Abaya tells to Rabba, L'didach kasha Rabbi Yosef kasha. There's a question on you and there's a question on Rabbi Yosef as well. Abaya is a student of both of them. He was raised in the house of Rabba and he was also a student of Rabbi Yosef. It says, L'didach kasha mishum chayrashin mishum zurei alai. According to you, Rabba, you said that we're dealing here with plowing. This is considered the category is plowing. So he says, I have a question on you because you're telling me that it's just plowing and it's not planting, sowing. It's not sowing the seeds. It's only that. That's what it sounds like you're saying. You're saying it's only that. And according to Rabbi Yosef, I have a problem on him because he's saying it's only planting and it's not plowing. So maybe what you want to tell me is, maybe what you want to say is that if there's two malachas that are being performed with one action, You can only get one malacha out of that. You can't say it's two malachas. It can only be chayiv because of one. It says, I disagree. Va'amar Rav Kana, we have a statement from Rav Kana. Earlier, he's a student of Rav. Zaymer v'tzarech leitzim. You see, Zaymer is pruning. You cut the branches of a tree. What does that do? It helps the tree grow better. It gives you more fruit when you prune the tree. But if you prune, and at the same time of pruning the tree, you also want that wood for firewood. So you're harvesting and you're planting. So chayiv shtayim, achas mishum leiteya, achas mishum kaitzer. Leiteya is the tree form of Zaireya. Zaireya is planting seeds. Leiteya is planting trees. This is considered planting the tree. It means promoting the growth of the tree. And it's also harvesting because you needed the wood. So you see, you're chayav for two things. You did one malacha, you did one trimming, and you're chayav for two malachas. So I have a kasha on Rabbah and on Rabbi Yosef. Why are you telling me I'm only chayav for plowing? I'm not chayav for planting, or planting and not for plowing? I'm chayav for both. Right. So his intention is going to make a difference here. Yeah. If it would be fruit or some other sort, you see, it's only because it's wood, which is not really considered a food. You have to actually have intention that you need it for it to be considered harvesting. And you could eat the wood. This is kasha. This is a question. A biased question is a question. You should be chayav for both. Esri Rabbi Yosef l'Rabba. Rabbi Yosef asks a question on Rabbah. Rabbi Yosef was the one that said Zaireya. It's considered planting, sowing. Rabbah said it's plowing. This question goes like this: Hamanakesh, someone that weeds, takes the weeds out of the field. And he covers over lekalayim covers over the roots to help it grow. In its kalayim, it's a forbidden mixture in a vineyard. You're growing grain in a vineyard, that's not allowed. Like you get malchus. Rabbi Kiva says afa makayim. Even if you just allow it to exist, how do you allow it to exist? You don't take it out. He says that's also a prohibition. I don't know if you can get malchus for that because you didn't do an action, but it says that would be also, sounds like you do get malchus. I don't know.
But he's got three actions, so doing nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like real intention.
Right. So who's quoting this? Rabbi Yosef. He says, Bishleim Elididi, if you want to follow my opinion, Damina Mishum Zaireya, that I say it has to do with plowing. Weeding is considered plowing. Haino Dasira Zriya B'Kilayim. That's why we'll say that it's prohibited, because you're not allowed to plant Kilayim. So Rabbi Yosef says that weeding is planting, right? Rabbah said it's plowing. It says weeding is planting. So what you're doing over here when you have kalayim, you take the weeds out. So you're planting. It's considered planting the other grain that's growing there. But according to you, that says that it's plowing. What does the kalayim have to do with it?
That's just a forbidden mixture.
Yeah. So I have in one field.
Difference in whether you're planting or not, like.
Yeah, so I have in this field, I have grapevines and I also have wheat. And the owner's coming over and taking the weeds out, not the wheat out, the weeds out. So that's helping the wheat grow better. So,
What's the climate aspect?
So you're not allowed to grow the wheat in a vineyard. That's called kalayim.
But by weeding those other plants, he's helping the kalayim grow better. So when he helps the other kalayim grow better, pre-existing kalayim in the field, right?
Yeah. So Rabbi Yosef says, but he gets malchus now because he's planting it. You're not allowed to plant kalayim. You're not allowed to plant it in a vineyard.
There because he's weeding, it's counted
as planting it. However, according to Rabbah that say that it's plowing, charisha b'kalayim yasira. You're not allowed to plow kalayim. I never heard of such a pasuk. It says leisiz karmacha leisizra kalayim. You can't plant But does it say you can't plow? It doesn't say that. Amalei. So Rabbi says back Mishum Makayim. It's not a malacha of plowing kalayim. It goes under the category of allowing kalayim to exist. The Gemara, so Rabbi Yosef responds. He says, "V'amidik tani seifa, Rabbi Akiva imarafa makayim, mechlal the Tanakama lav mishum kalayim hu." That was, now you're telling me Rabbi Akiva's opinion. The Tanakama obviously held that it was not chayrish, because there's no such thing as chayrish. Must have held that it's zayreya, that it's planting. This is the Rabbi Yosef's kasha. Gemara says,
isn't he already chayav for the kilayim from the time that it was already planted?
yeah, if he planted it on purpose, then he would be chayav. But let's say it
Obviously,
just
if he
fell
didn't
in.
plant it on purpose, it would also be chayav.
Well, 1 second. According to Rabbi Akiva, you're chayav just for makayim. But according to the Tanakama, you're only chayav for doing an action.
But I was
Which
getting to the
action?
question of, if it's already been planted, he's already chayav for the planting.
If
He's
you
not going to
planted
be
on
chayav
purpose.
again.
No, you could be chayav again if you do another action. You'd be chayav again.
You can spiral yourself into a deeper.
So the right. In the chiyuv which should just come now. Well, yeah, that's what we're trying to say. But what Rabbi Yosef is saying, that it's because he's planting, and Rabbah is responding that it's because he's allowing it to exist. Because there's no such thing as plowing in here. So Rabbah says, Kula Rabbi Akiva. It's actually the whole Mishnah. Is this a Mishnah or a Brisa? It's a Tosefta. It's a Brisa. Kula Rabbi Akiva. Ma tam kamar. And really, the way you have to read it is like this: that what is the explanation? Ma tam amenachish v'mechape b'kilayim loika mishum kilayim. It's because of kilayim. Rabbi Akiva marafa makayim. It's because of makayim. Mishum makayim. It's because you're allowing it to exist. Rabbi Akiva says that allowing it to exist is also that prohibition. My time with the Rabbi Akiva, where does Rabbi Akiva get this from? That you're not allow it to exist. The kalayim can say, you just walk by and say, I didn't do anything. That's prohibited. The Tanya was taught in a brisa. Sadcha, it quotes the pasuk. Sadcha le'sizra kalayim. Don't plant your field with this mixture. Ainli ela zereya. I only know that you're not allowed to plant. Makayim minayin. How do you know you're not allowed to let it exist? You have to pull it out, actually. Talmud laimar kalayim sadcha lai. It says behemtecha le'sabia kalayim. Sadcha le'sizra kalayim. So what he's doing is he's saying that the kalayim sadcha lai. He's taking the kalayim from the pasuk before and adding it to sadcha le'sizra, and is putting it together. It's like if you miss the period, the safe pasuk.
Is there a period?
It's a safe pasuk. I don't have the pasuk in here, but on the side here, let me just open this up. Yeah. So he's saying kalayim. Oh, you're right. It's just a comma. Yeah. Kalayim sadcha loy. That you can't allow the kalayim in your field. Not sadcha loy sizra. That would tell me you can't plant it. Here it's telling me that it can't exist. Yeah, it's the trup. So, climb sadchalai. Okay, Tanan taught in the Mishnah. Mashkin beis hashlachim b'mayir b'shvius. You can water a beis hashlachim. Actually, you know what? Let's leave it over here because we have to daven chakras. Let's leave it by Tanan. And this is a new piece. The question of the heter of Shemitah, doing work on Shemitah for this. Okay. Have a good Shabbos, everyone.
That was a great one.
Thank you.
After Shachris Yitzi, there's a siyum. Yeah, we're all set. Okay.